Hello everyone. Thank you, dear friends, for the incredible support you've shown to my channel. It truly means the world to me. Sending you all my love. I'd love it if you could drop a comment letting me know which city you're watching from. For those of you visiting for the first time, please consider subscribing to my channel and giving this video a like. By doing so, you'll help grow our creepy community and make it possible for me to share even more stories like these. Tonight, I have 2 more chilling tales from the secret depths of the dark web to share with you. Expect some unexpected twists, so stick around until the very end. Enjoy the video. Each night I study Helen's face in the dim light of our bedroom, memorizing every detail as if documenting evidence. The gentle slope of her nose, the precise arch of her eyebrows, the way her upper lip curves slightly more on the left when she smiles. Not because I find her beautiful, though she is, undeniably, but because I'm terrified these features will change again. We met at a dark period in my life. After my sister's disappearance, I'd spent months diving into the hidden corners of the internet, following her last digital traces. That's how I found Helen, not through dating apps or mutual friends, but in the shadows of the dark web where I searched for answers. She worked in cryptocurrency forensics, she said, helped people track stolen funds. Her knowledge of those hidden networks both impressed and unsettled me. The first year of our marriage was perfect. Too perfect, looking back. Helen knew exactly what to say, how to move, what expressions to wear at each moment. Like she'd studied human behavior and learned to replicate it flawlessly. I dismissed these thoughts as paranoia, a side effect of too many sleepless nights spent staring at screens. Then came the changes. Subtle at first, the angle of her cheekbone shifting slightly, her jaw becoming marginally sharper. Changes that made me question my sanity. Who notices such things about their wife? What kind of husband keeps detailed notes about his spouse's facial features, comparing them month by month? I found her medical supplies by accident, hidden in a temperature-controlled safe behind her collection of vintage perfume bottles, syringes filled with clear liquid, instruments that looked surgical but weren't quite right. When I confronted her, she explained them away with practiced ease. Botox, she said. Every woman has her secrets. But I'd seen enough working cybersecurity to recognize the markings on those packages. They matched patterns I'd traced while hunting my sister's kidnappers. Medical supply chains that didn't officially exist. Shipping routes that vanished into digital dead ends. The worst part isn't the suspicion. It's the moments of normality that make me doubt everything. When she laughs at my jokes, or burns dinner, or cries during sad movies, she seems so perfectly, painfully human. Yet each night, I lie awake listening to the sounds from her locked bathroom. The soft click of metal instruments, the wet sounds I can't identify, the muffled whimpers that might be pain or might be something else entirely. Last week, I found a folder hidden in her encrypted files. Inside was a photo of my missing sister, and next to it, a detailed diagram of her face, mapped out like an architect's blueprint. My sister disappeared 3 years ago while investigating human trafficking networks. Her last message mentioned medical tourism and illegal organ trade, but focused on something more specific. A network of underground clinics specializing in identity reconstruction. Not just plastic surgery, but complete facial transformation using cutting-edge tissue engineering. The police dismissed her theories as conspiracy thinking from too much time spent in dark corners of the internet. But I knew my sister. Her research was meticulous, her evidence carefully documented. Somewhere in the encrypted files she left behind was the truth about these clinics. And now, watching Helen's nightly rituals, I feared I was living with that truth. I began cataloging everything. The precise temperature she maintained in our house, never above 68 degrees. The way she avoided direct sunlight, claiming migraines. The deliveries that arrived every month in temperature-controlled containers, paid for through a maze of cryptocurrency transactions. But it was the sound that haunted me most. Late at night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear her in the bathroom. A wet, peeling sound, like removing a band-aid from wet skin, but slower, deliberate, sometimes followed by soft whimpers that made my stomach turn. I started following her digital footprint, tracing back through layers of encryption. Each night, while she performed her mysterious rituals, I dug deeper into the network my sister had uncovered. The same clinics kept appearing, in Zagreb, in Kiev, in Prague, each one specializing in experimental facial reconstruction, each one connected to missing persons cases. Then I found the photos. Hidden in an encrypted folder on Helen's laptop were hundreds of faces, women of different ages and ethnicities, but all sharing one common trait. They could have been Helen, or rather, Helen could have been them. Each face carefully documented with dates and measurements. My sister's was among them, labeled source material number 23, but it was the last photo that broke me. Helen's current face, the one I kissed goodnight just hours ago, labeled with yesterday's date and a warning. Degradation at 47%. Replacement required. I waited until 2 a.m. to confront her, knowing that was when she'd begin her nightly procedure. The bathroom door was locked as usual, but I had already bypassed the electronic mechanism days before. What I didn't expect was her calmness when I entered. She stood before the mirror, face partially peeled back from jawline to cheekbone, revealing a complex mesh of artificial tissue underneath. The true horror wasn't the exposed structure. It was the collection of faces laid out on the counter like expensive masks, each one preserved in clear solution. Your sister was close to exposing everything, Helen said, her voice distorted by the partially detached prosthetic. She found the network, the clinics, the procurement process. But she made one mistake. She trusted her source. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Helen hadn't been wearing my sister's face. She was the reason my sister's face was in their collection. The technology is revolutionary, she continued, lifting a new face from its solution. Biological engineering beyond anything publicly known. But maintenance is demanding. Each face has a limited lifespan. Your sister's features helped create 3 of my previous iterations. I thought of all our intimate moments, every kiss and touch, all shared with someone wearing pieces of my sister's face. The nausea rose like a tide. You don't have to scream, Helen said, noticing my expression. No one would hear you anyway. The same soundproofing that keeps my procedures private works both ways. She lifted a syringe. Besides, we've been watching you for months. Your investigation makes you a liability now. But don't worry, with your bone structure, you'll make an excellent donor. The last thing I saw before the needle entered my neck was my reflection in the mirror, and I finally understood why Helen had chosen me. My face would look perfect on her next client. I used to think rock bottom had a flaw. That was before I found myself in the darker corners of the internet, where desperation meets opportunity and everything has a price. 2 weeks ago, I was Ash Blackwood, Senior Data Analyst at Meridian Corp. Now I'm just another desperate soul on the dark web, hunting for ways to make quick cash. The regular sites weren't cutting it anymore. Amazon gift cards and PayPal surveys that paid pennies. I needed real money, fast. The firing wasn't even the worst part. It was walking back to my office to collect my things and finding Luna, my Luna, pressed up against my replacement, Kai Rivers. Their lips were locked, her hands running through his hair, the way she used to do with mine. They didn't even notice me standing there, box in hand, watching my life crumble in real time. That night, after draining the last of my whiskey, I did what any desperate person would do. I started exploring the parts of the internet they warn you about. The dark web wasn't what I expected. No hitmen or drug markets on my first dive, just endless forums of people like me, desperate, broke, looking for an angle. I found a thread about surveys. Not your typical consumer feedback bullshit, but something different. Deep profiling, they called it. Companies paying serious cash for psychological data. The thread was full of warnings too. People talking about reality shifts and cognitive alterations. I laughed it off. Bunch of paranoid basement dwellers trying to scare newcomers, I thought. 3 VPN connections and a Tor browser later, I was in. The site looked ancient. Black background, green text like something from the 90s. No flashy graphics, no bullshit promises. Just a simple header. The Archive, Psychological Profiling Division. The payment amounts made my eyes widen. $500 per completed survey. $1,000 for extended sessions. Even if it was a scam, I had to try. My rent was due in a week, and my bank account was showing single digits. The registration process was strange. They wanted odd details, my dream patterns, childhood fears, whether I'd ever experienced déjà vu. I filled everything out honestly. What did I have to hide anymore? Then came the disclaimer. By proceeding, you acknowledge that your responses may alter your perception of reality. The archive is not responsible for any psychological changes that occur during or after the survey process. I laughed as I checked the box. Reality couldn't get much worse than what it already was. Besides, how much damage could a few survey questions do? The screen went black, then displayed 5 words in pulsing green text. Welcome to the Lost Archive. I should have read those warnings more carefully. I should have listened to the people on the forum. But desperation has a way of making you blind to danger, especially when it comes dressed as salvation. Looking back now, I realize that's exactly what they were counting on. The first set of questions seemed normal enough. Basic demographic information, personality assessment, The kind of stuff you'd expect from any psychological study. But then things started shifting. Question 17. Rate your current urge to look behind you. I remember chuckling at that one. Typical psychological manipulation, I thought. But even as I selected one, no urge at all, I felt it. That creeping sensation on the back of my neck, like someone breathing there. I glanced over my shoulder. Empty apartment, dark windows reflecting my laptop's glow. Nothing unusual. Question 18. You're walking down a street at night. Every person you pass is wearing the same face. What do you do? The questions were getting stranger, but the money was already in my crypto wallet from the first section. $500 for answering questions. I could handle some creepy scenarios for that kind of cash. Question 24. A child approaches you in a dream. They have your face, aged 8 years old. They ask why you let them die. What is your response? I started sweating. The room felt colder somehow. Each question seemed to dig deeper into my psyche, probing at fears I didn't even know I had. But the next question button kept pulsing, and my bank account kept growing. Question 31. You wake up every day in the same moment, but each time someone you love disappears. You're the only one who remembers they existed. How many days before you accept the new reality? That's when I noticed something was wrong with my apartment. The shadows didn't match the light from my laptop. They moved against it, actually, like ink spreading through water. And the walls. Had they always been that color, that texture? Question 42. The person reading this question is not the same person who started this survey. Agree or disagree? My hands were shaking as I moved the cursor. The question felt personal, targeted. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. For a split second, I could have sworn my reflection moved independently, its eyes tracking something behind me. Question 47. There's someone standing behind you right now. They've been there since question 17. Do you turn around? The cursor hovered between yes and no. The air felt thick, like breathing through syrup. Everything in my apartment looked slightly wrong now. Familiar objects twisted just enough to make them alien. My phone was dead, though I distinctly remembered it being fully charged. That's when I heard the first knock at my door. 3 sharp raps, precise and deliberate. I jumped, nearly knocking over my laptop. The screen flashed. Question 48. Someone is at your door. They are not who they appear to be. Do you? A. Open the door. B. Ignore them. C. Ask who it is. D. Data redacted. The knocking came again, more insistent this time, and then a voice, distorted, like it was being played through damaged speakers. Mr. Blackwood, we need to discuss your survey responses. Some concerning patterns have emerged. I looked back at my screen. All the previous questions had disappeared. Only one remained. Final question. What makes you think you're still in control? The knocking got louder, and somewhere, in the darkness behind me, something started to laugh. The knocking stopped as suddenly as it began. In the silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat, too fast, too loud. My laptop screen flickered, the questions disappearing one by one, replaced by a single line of text, connecting to archive mainframe. Connection established. The temperature in my apartment dropped. I could see my breath now, little clouds of vapor in the frigid air. The walls seemed to pulse with a faint, sickly green glow, the same shade as the text on my screen. "Please remain calm, Mr. Blackwood," a new message appeared. "Your psychological profile has been catalogued. You are now part of the archive." I tried to close the laptop, but my hands wouldn't move. The screen's glow intensified, casting strange shadows that didn't match any objects in my apartment. That's when I noticed them. Figures in the shadows, watching. Not people, exactly. More like the absence of people. Holes in reality shaped like human silhouettes. Another knock at the door, different this time. Softer. A woman's voice called out, clear and urgent. "Mr. Blackwood, don't trust the archive. They're not collecting data. They're collecting consciousness. You need to disconnect now." My screen flashed red. Unauthorized intervention detected. New questions began appearing rapidly. Are you still you? How many versions of yourself exist in the archive? When did you first realize this wasn't your original reality? The woman at the door was pounding now. They've already started the transfer. Your consciousness is being uploaded to their database. Each question you answered created a deeper connection. You have to... Her voice cut off mid-sentence. In its place came a new sound, the soft hum of computer servers, seemingly emanating from every wall of my apartment. The shadows were moving closer, their edges becoming more defined. I could make out suits, ties, professional attire. The auditors, I realized, the ones who review the surveys. My laptop displayed a final message. Transfer complete. Welcome to the Lost Archive. Subject 2,847,149. Your experiences have been successfully archived. The room spun. Everything felt distant, digital, like I was watching myself through a screen. The walls of my apartment dissolved into streams of data. Endless lines of code containing memories, fears, hopes, all extracted through those seemingly innocent survey questions. What you're feeling is normal. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. Your consciousness now exists in multiple states, both in your physical form and within our database. Think of it as a backup copy of your existence. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, I watched as another version of me formed from the shadows, sat at my laptop, and began answering the first survey question again, and again, and again. The woman's warning came too late. I understood now. The Lost Archive wasn't just a name. It was a description, a database of lost souls, trapped in an endless loop of digital existence, each one thinking they're the original, each one just another copy in an infinite archive of human consciousness. As my reality fractured into countless parallel versions, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. My face smiled back at me, but I wasn't smiling. The survey had one final question. Now that you understand, would you like to begin again? Below it, the cursor blinked. Waiting for an answer it already knew I would give. After all, I no longer had a choice. I was part of the archive now, just another file in their database of lost souls. And somewhere, in another reality, another version of me is just clicking on a simple black banner that reads, surveys for cash,